Welcome to the 1920s, the era of paradox. At least that's what I'm calling it. Um, by era of paradox, I mean that there was really a lot of different movements that seemed to be going on at the same time, but didn't really make sense together. So you had this conservative moral movement going on. We're going to deal with that in terms of the Scopes Monkey trial, but also on the other side, you had this cultural liberation. And they all didn't really make sense how they were all happening together, but they were. So I'm going to look at a couple of these real quick. We're going to look at Prohibition. We're going to look at the Ku Klux Klan. We're going to look at flappers, and we're going to look at amusement parks. No, these don't make sense together. Um, Start off. We know Prohibition was happening during this time period. If you don't know what Prohibition is, it was the 18th Amendment to the American Constitution that banned the sale of alcohol. Not the drinking, but the sale. Yes, this is one of the greatest travesties our country has ever done, except for all that stuff that involves in people's lives getting lost. But besides that, um, the interesting thing is, by the time the 18th Amendment was pushed through, half the country was already dry. You already couldn't sell alcohol in half the country, mostly rural America. Um, but the amazing thing is that there was this idea, this belief that the drinking of alcohol was a disrupting influence that would take away the moral values of any human being, that they couldn't control themselves, um, and you had to take that away from them. They believed it so much that the Volstead Act was put forth. 3,000 agents were put in effect just to stop the sale of alcohol, or the running of alcohol, if you will. Um, Top of that, you got the organization of the second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan. This is not the same as the group who rose up after the Civil War. This was the second edition, led by a guy named William J. Simmons. They were focused in places like Illinois, Ohio, Oregon. This was not the old Southern version. Um, and they emphasized the rituals, the costumes, the pointy hats and the white cloaks and the uh, red crosses with the circles, all those kind of symbols that you've seen. And they advocated 100% American, right? It was all about being a true American. Of course, American to them was WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. They hated everything else. Immigrants was their number one person they were against. Any type of foreigner. Um, Argued against loose women, of course blacks, of course Jews, but frankly the most oppressed group, believe it or not, were Catholics because they worshipped a Roman dictator. Okay. Um, but this was a patriotic group. It had 5 million members. They put together the largest march on Washington, D.C. that had ever been done. It was only beat by Martin Luther King's march on Washington, D.C. And yes, that was intentionally intended to be larger, specifically than the Ku Klux Klan march. Um, but the idea when they did march, they marched with faces shown. It was kind of a prideful thing to be part of this organization. You didn't hide it necessarily. Um, this was something to white American that was okay. All right. On the other hand, this is going to be a time of cultural liberation. You're going to have a group now called the Flappers. This is my cultural liberation outfit. Hold on, let me adjust it correctly. Clearly, I don't know how to wear my cultural liberation outfit. Okay. Um, Young ladies started calling themselves flappers. They started um, actually wearing short skirts. Started wearing makeup. Who wears makeup? Well, prostitutes wear makeup. 1920s, young, respectable, middle-class girls are wearing makeup. They're smoking. They're drinking. They're partying. They entering the public sphere. Good young ladies before the 1920s did not enter the public sphere. You did not go out in public. You stayed at home and you were courted. And now, in the 1920s, with the advent of access of cars to most people, the Model T, right? Um, Dates are going to leave what we call the front porch and move to, oh, maybe the back seat. Um, no longer dates will be chaperoned. These cars will be instruments of independence. They'll be instruments of cultural liberation for youth as well as just young women. Necking and petting will be a new common activity on dates. Necking is kind of like petting is right. Okay, this challenged this existing order, but these people, especially these young girls, were not ashamed of this independence. There was this move to youth culture. Um, and these homemade community activities, the idea that the community would get together and have kind of picnics or whatever, gave way to going out to picture shows, movies, going to dance halls. Um, and the biggest one was amusement parks. Coney Island was the big place. It was the first, but a lot of major cities will start having these. Um, Amusement park visitation will shoot up 300% in about 4 years. Um, Upper class and middle class women, even lower class women could go and they could intermingle with each other. Um, some of them are working now. They're having jobs. Um, and they will go to places like Luna and Steeplechase. These are amusement parks on Coney Island with the bright lights and the shows. Um, but the idea is it's away from the family. It's getting out. It's doing Lord knows what. It's drinking in bars. This is a different society. This is a type of cultural liberation that you did not see. Remember, we are just emerging from what we call the Victorian age. This type of like hoop skirts and high collars. And now you're in flappers with short skirts, bob haircuts, and cigarettes and drinks in hand. At the same time, that you have this moral movement that half the country will rally around the idea that you can't teach school children that it is possible that we evolved from apes. It's a confusing time. Hence, the era of paradox. See you next week.